Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Lewisburg. We're having a panel discussion today called Memories from the Concentration Camp. On December the 7th, 1941, Japan bombs Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. The next day, Franklin D. Roosevelt declares war on Japan. And 5 months later, the evacuation of all of the Japanese on the west coast of the United States, Washington, Oregon, and California begin. When the evacuation began, we were given 2 weeks to sell our businesses, sell our homes, get rid of all of your appliances, most of your personal belongings, because you were only able to take what you could carry, which basically was 2 suitcases. We were then taken to one of 16 assembly centers while the 10 camps were being built. Poston and Tule Lake opened first in May of 1942. Jerome, Arkansas was last in October of 42. Each camp held over 10,000 people, but Poston and Tule Lake had the most at 18,000. Poston had 3. They had Poston 1, Poston 2, and Poston 3. All 10 camps were built very similarly, 1 mile long, 1 mile wide, with guard towers every half a mile, with soldiers inside with their guns pointed inside, not out. Around the encampment was barbed wire. Each of the camps were in desolate areas, not where there were any towns or cities close by. I'll start by telling you my little story. My name is Shar Takahashi. I was 3 months old when my parents, my more grandparents, and my 3 aunts were sent to Santa Anita Assembly Center. My grandparents and aunts were put in horse stalls to wait until the camp was made. Because I was an infant, my parents and I were put in a small room where the jockeys changed their clothes. They wanted to make sure I didn't die. My bachan filled one of her suitcases with food so that she could feed my mother, because my mother was breastfeeding me at the time. After holding for a few months, we were sent by train to Jerome, Arkansas. My parents said that the shades on the windows of the train were pulled down and closed because they were afraid that people might shoot into the trains if they knew that Japanese were aboard. After a year in Jerome, my parents and I were given permission to go farm with my Shiba grandparents, who were in Rocky Ford, Colorado. My sister was born there. After the war, my whole family moved back to California. My father became a gardener, and my mother was a domestic, working in a home. I grew up from kindergarten to 12th grade in Long Beach. I went to 2 years of college, and then I applied as a United Airlines stewardess. And for 3 years, I flew and I got to see the world. In 1966, I married my husband, Shar Takahashi. I returned back to college, finished up my 5 years, and became a teacher. And I taught for 40 years with Montebello School District. Both jobs I loved, and I would have done it for free. We have 2 children, Miles and Sunny, and I have 6 grandchildren who are the joys of our life. We will celebrate our 60th wedding anniversary this year. Our first speaker is Kabo Yakura. He was at the Gila River, Arizona concentration camp.
Sorry. Thank you, Shar. start. My name's Kabo Yakura, and I get the first shot. And I have a little bit more of the history of the camp itself, and the others would talk about their family, and I'm going to put both of them together. Now, to start with, I'm talking about my father, my mother, my sister, and myself. I was 6 years old when we went into camp, and we got bused out of our home to the assembly center at the Santa Anita racetrack in Arcadia. And before we got there, most of the barracks were already built up in the parking lot. And those that were fortunate, we got assigned home families into one of the rooms. And the rooms were filled, or when the homes were filled, they were housed in the horse stables, which was very strong in horse odor, and wasn't very nice. But my father believed that Japan made a mistake in bombing Pearl Harbor. He knew that the Japanese Americans were going to have a very hard time and be victims and be hated by the people of the United States. His attitude was, if America government was going to feed us, house us, or separate us from anti-Japanese sentiment for the duration of the war, it was fine for him. The first thing that he did in the Assembly Center was to sign the loyalty oath. We, my father, mother, and sister, and like I said, myself, arrived in Gila relocation camp. And the campsite was just a flat desert. The housing barracks there were built in rows. Each barrack was divided into four units. One room would be for the family of two at the end of the barrack and two families in the middle. My father, divided the large room into partitions of 2 bedrooms and a closet. He also made beds for us, and we didn't have to sleep on the cots. Knowing that we were going to Arizona, he also brought a electric motor and fan, and he built a swamp cooler to keep us cool in the summertime. As my father was very good with his hands. And basically, the camps were run by self-government. Everyone had a job on the outside, volunteered, and had the same job when they came into the camps. Teachers on the outside became teachers in the camp. Doctors were doctors, chefs were chefs. Regardless of what kind of job that you got, everyone received $15 per month. We were rich. The farmers farmed about 500 acres of farmland, growing beets, carrots, celery, onions, potatoes, and other vegetables. There were cows, milk cows, pigs, and chicken in abundance. And he even built a butchering plant right there on the grounds. And I ate in the mess hall with my sister and father, and my mother, she was a worker bee in the mess hall. But our food was vacant area of social gathering. There were movies under the stars. There was athletic fields and playgrounds. And in our camp, believe it or not, they built a baseball field with even dugouts and put bleachers. We were the lucky ones. When we departed, everyone received $25 and a ticket for transportation. And our destination was Los Angeles. Our father left the camp before we had. We left. And he had cancer and needed surgery. And a year later, after camp, he passed away. My mother and sister, out of camp, got a job as seamstress. My sister went to night school and got a job as a stenographer, and my poor mom worked at the same job until she got her Social Security. I personally went to Poly High School in UCLA for 1 year, but I was lost. I really did. I needed to grow up. It was just terrible. So I drafted myself into the U.S. Army, and 2 years later, I got out of the Army and enrolled at the California State University, Los Angeles, and that they had a curriculum in law enforcement. And I became a special agent for the United States Secret Service. And during my time in Secret Service, were 6 presidents, the first being Kennedy, and the last one was Reagan, that was sworn up during my period. I protected some leaders of the world, like the President of the United States and Emperor and Empress of Japan, and other protectees. In addition to protection, Secret Service was responsible for investigating counterfeit of the United States currency and forgery of government states and checks and bonds. And after I retired, I put away my gun and went to church right here. After quite a distant time, I received a call from the archivist of the Secret Service, and he gave me a call and said, I by any chance checked all the records of all the former and current agents, and he said, and I found that you are the first Japanese American Secret Service agent. And from here, I'm going to a little ad-lib myself because I left my notes at home. But on 2023, I had the honor to receive at my house Don Tanaka, who's here, and Shar, and another lady, Terry Lim, come to my house. And they are volunteers at the Japanese American Museum. And they had a lot of 4th and 5th generation Japanese kids coming to them and asking about what happened to their parents and grandparents as far as what transpired, immigrants, and they found that I was the first Japanese agent and said, could you like to make an article on me? And I said, sure, why not? No, but Terry Lim actually built wrote the article, and she also, for your information, got me into both the Angels and Dodgers stadium, and for the Japanese, what is it? The Japanese, yeah, the game. And then I got on the big screen and everything, and it was just awesome. I would never forget that in my lifetime. But to continue with, the question of what happened to their parents was, we came out of there poor. You know, like I said, we got $25 and that was it. There was no welfare or social security or anything. And my mom had to become the lady of the house and everything. And we survived, and we all survived. And I can, just a minute. I've got to go through my pages here. Huh? Ooh, I'm sorry. But anyways, that's what basically happened to us. So go ahead and listen to the next person. Thank you.
I'm so sorry that I have to interrupt you, but we have limited time, and each of our speakers are limited to 8 minutes, and so that is why I'm rushing you. Please forgive me. Our next speaker is Tetsu Joy, who also was at the Gila River concentration camp. Tetsu?
Kabo and myself, we were in the same camp, and I was on block 52. I don't know what block he was in, but he was probably close by. But to start off this interview, sort of, when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, I was in a living room with my father and my mother and my brother. And I was listening to the radio where they had programs such as Lone Ranger or Shadow No. We used to just lie down on the rug and just listening. And that was something that we did every, maybe once or twice a week. My father would be reading the newspaper, and my mother would, at that particular time, she was ironing her shirts. So this is just a regular thing that happened to probably everybody. They were just probably relaxing when the war was announced. But anyhow, when the war started, about a couple of days later, the FBI agents came over and they took away our radio. They had a shortwave on that radio, the big console radio, and we weren't exactly surprised because we knew through the neighborhood that these federal agents were going by through these Japanese homes. So my father was a farmer, and he had, I think, about 25 acres at that time, and at that time, we had cucumbers and cauliflower growing, and this particular land that it was using was leased from the U.S. Navy. So when the war started, they put barbed wires around the land, so we could, so that my father could not harvest the crop. But so what we had, my father, what he did was he had to hire Mexican laborers, and he would just watch the Mexican laborers harvest the cucumbers and cauliflower. But anyhow, one of the stories I want to tell is that we had a dog, and we had to get rid of the dog because we only had about a couple weeks before we left for assembly center, and then we took the dog to the beach. And I lived in Oxnard, California, so we were close to the beach. So we took the dog over there, and we left him there. And then after a couple of days later, he came back. So we didn't know what to do. We can't go back to the beach because he would come right back home. So what we did, my father got him on a pickup truck and tied him down and then took him way north. So he would never find his way back. He'd probably zigzag all the way there, so the dog would come back. But anyhow, after a couple of weeks when we got notice that we had to leave, we went to Tulare. And most of the people that went to Tulare, they went to Gila. And also the people that were at Santa Anita, they also went to Gila. So we went to Tulare, I think around, I'll take a look at my notes on this. That was in April of 42. And we stayed there for a couple months, and then we took a train and bus to Gila. And it just opened up when we got there. But I didn't see too many barbed wires. So I just saw people with luggage and a bunch of people just wandering around looking for where they're supposed to stay. And the thing is that it was hot, and in Gila, it averaged around 105 to 120 degrees during the day. So people that lived in California, I guess in a way they were used to the hot weather, because that's where we lived. So the place that we stayed at a barracks that was about near the back of the camp. And back of the camp there was a hill where Kabo was saying that we had, I think we were the first town or camp to have what they call outdoor theater. And the theater was, actually we sat on the slope of a mountain. And that's where all the snakes, scorpions, because there was, rock. And so people would bring blankets. And then my father made a chair for us that we could sit down. And because he worked in a canteen, I always had soda. All they do, I think he was, he give us the flavoring, and we just add water, and then just add some ice, and put it in a glass container. And as I took it to walk toward the mountain, and then we just sat with our friends. Okay, I didn't believe that I was talking that long. But anyhow, in Gila, it was so hot that people slept outside. And then we built cellars underneath the barracks because it's just too hot inside. And we also, people that were very good in being a handyman, they built a water cooler, and that's what my father did. I think he ordered the fan probably from Montgomery Ward's or Sears and Roebuck, and then he put the straws behind that or in front, and then they had water going down. So when the fan went on, they blew the air to the water and cooled the room. And well, because my time was getting short, I just want to let you know, as a small boy, I didn't know exactly what was going on. So what I did was I just played around with the kids, and we used to play with what they call a pea shooter. A pea shooter, you get a small pea, and I get a straw and you put it and you throw a pea through the straw and you would hit the person and he would be captured. We also played kick the can, called it. We also played marbles. That was a real good game. Marbles were, you had a shooter and you try to knock all the marbles out of the ring. The other things that we did was, because I was a small boy, I used to walk around barefoot. And then one of the things that I did was, when I had some free time, I would leave the camp the back way, because we were on an Indian reservation. And then if you walked about a mile, you could come across not a teepee, but probably a home that's adobe type of a home. And what I did was I took a loaf of bread to over there and I traded. And I got hot tamales. And hot tamales was so good because of chicken, and this is almost like a taco, I think, but a little different. But this taco had little chili. So it was very different from the food that I was getting at the mess hall. I got a lot more, but anyhow, going back near the end, we had to move out from Gila, and we left around October to go to Chicago, and Gila closed around November of that same year. And when we went to Chicago, we stayed at Leland Hotel, where a couple of my uncles were staying. One stayed in the basement at the hotel. We stayed up on the top floor. And all four of us, my mother, my father, my brother, we slept in one room. And we just stayed there for about a couple of weeks until the room opened up. But there was really something that they had no cooking facility, no hot plate. You had to go. I had to go to my uncle's place where they were staying also, and they had a hot plate, so they always made breakfast for us. And Saturday was something that we would go to the movie theater just to get out of the hotel, and we would see like Old Ranger type of a cereal or Pearl Pauline or something like that, where you see it as a cereal. But after a while, we moved to the west side of Chicago, where we stayed for about many years. And what we did was we bought a 3-flat building on the west side, and it was bought by 3 brothers, so it wasn't too bad. But anyhow, after a while, I think in 1965, I started to work with Beatrice Company. And, okay. I'm sorry for that. I'm getting my Kabo. Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry, I felt like the enforcer. But I want everyone to have an opportunity to speak. So our next speaker is Joyce Okazaki, who was at Manzanar. Joyce?
Good morning, everyone. I am Joyce Nakamura Okazaki. On December 7, 1941, my grandfather was arrested on his doorstep by the waiting FBI. As the family returned home from a dinner at a restaurant in Little Tokyo, he was taken to federal prison in San Pedro and later moved to Missoula, Montana. We were not sent to camp. We signed up to go to camp. My mother's sister, my aunt, was a doctor, and she was married to a doctor, a surgeon. They were asked by the California Department of Health to start up a hospital in Manzanar. She told them that she would agree to do that if all of her relatives and his relatives would go to Manzanar. They agreed to that, but we were to leave within the week. My grandmother and all my aunts and uncle by marriage left for Manzanar on April 1. We left the next day, boarding the train at a railroad station near at a railroad siding near Union Station. This was April 2nd of 1942, and I was 7 years old. After a long, slow journey on the train, with the shades pulled down so we couldn't see out the windows, we stopped at a railroad station and got off the train. And after we got our luggage, we boarded a U.S. Army transport truck with benches in the rear that we could sit on. They took us to the Manzanar Assembly Center, the first camp that was built to house the Japanese that had to move from their homes. It was opened on March 25, 1942. Barracks were still being built. My married uncle met us at the entrance with a flashlight. After we picked up our luggage, he led us to our barrack where we were to stay. We joined my grandmother and 2 single aunts because there was a shortage of barracks. The room was bare with many cots and mattresses filled with straw. There was no running water and no place to cook food. We had to walk to the women's lavatory to use the facilities. There was a row of toilets with no walls or doors. A row of wash basins was on the other side of the wall. The showers were in another room. No privacy. There's no walls. Grandmother and my aunts moved to another barrack about a month or 2 later. But we stayed in this room, 20 by 25 feet, with 1 hanging light bulb and an oil heater for warming the room. No chair to sit on or table. We were in Block 12, Barrack 9, Unit 4. We had to walk to the mess hall to eat. The food in the mess hall was not very good. I mostly didn't like the food and would sometimes refuse to eat. My mother would make me sit at the table until I took 1 bite, but I would not take a bite and sit there until it was closing time for the mess hall. One of the foods I didn't like was squid. It must have been caught by the hundreds. You know, they catch them in those nets to feed everyone in 36 mess halls in the camp. The cooks probably dumped the squid into boiling water with a splash of soy sauce. It was awful, rubbery, and tasteless, and a hard cartilage in the center and a tentacle still attached. My other grandfather raised rabbits, a cage full of them. He decided to donate them to Block 12 Mess Hall for Christmas dinner. The day arrived for a big event, and the people were walking past our barrack. I decided to join them. There were 2 huge steel cages with rabbits running around and men working inside to catch them one at a time, drown them in a barrel full of water, cut off their heads and skin them, and hang the body to drain. I watched until the last rabbit was worked on. When dinner came on Christmas Day, I took 1 look at the food and could not take 1 bite. I will not eat rabbit to this day, no matter how fancy or deliciously it is prepared. Let's see, get my pages here. On June of 1942, Manzanar became the regular WRA camp, and my grandfather was released to join us in camp, and this was in 6 months. All of our relatives lived close by in Block 12, different barracks. but my grandparents lived in Block 29 along with my doctor aunt and her husband. I was in second grade in Marino Missionary School in Little Tokyo. All of the students were Japanese, and after it was determined that all Japanese would be moved, the school was closed in March. When I arrived in Manzanar, there was no school. School did not start until the fall, after the superintendent was hired. I told my mother I was not going back to second grade, but I was going to go to third grade, and she let me as I was 8 years old. My birthday's in July. The most significant event for me in Manzanar was to be photographed by Ansel Adams. He was too old for the draft and wanted to do something to be of service, so he asked his friend Ralph Merritt, director of Manzanar, if there was something he could do. Mr. Merritt suggested he take photographs of people in the camp, living their everyday lives. He was not to take a photo of barbed wire fences or guard towers. Our family was selected to be photographed, and he took our portraits with a black tar paper barrack as background. He also took photos of us doing different things. A picture of the three of us is one of my favorite photos. Ansel Adams wrote the text and took all the photos for the book, Born Free and Equal, published by U.S. Camera in 1944. It had a soft cover, and our portraits were in the book with our names. The book was reprinted in 2001 with a hardcover, quality paper, 4 of the photographs, and a colorful book jacket. My photo was selected to be on the cover. And this book was reprinted for the opening of the Manzanar National Historic Site as part of the National Park Service. My father was not photographed because he was away picking potatoes in Pocatello, Idaho. He had planned to leave camp and go east to look for work. He applied for permission to leave, as did my mother. He was approved to leave, but she wasn't. She was told that her father was in federal prison. She finally was given permission to leave after additional questioning. My father got a one-way ticket to New York City and $25, found a job that would take him to Chicago. This was spring of '44. When school year ended, we packed and left Manzanar in July of 1944. We traveled by bus to Reno and boarded the train to Union Pacific train to Chicago. I finished elementary school, graduated high school, and attended the University of Illinois, Chicago, Navy Pier. When my father got a transfer to Los Angeles, because my mother wanted to return, I transferred to UCLA in my sophomore year and majored in business and graduated with a BS in business administration in 1956. The end.
Our next speaker is Harry Nakamura, who was also at Manzanar.
First, I have a request. If I go off track, I may have to be reminded what I'm talking about. My parents had been picked up by FBI before, so I went to Manzanar with my uncle and cousins. When we arrived in April, Manzanar was still under construction. I noticed that the construction workers were volunteers. The authorities has reached out to the Japanese American community asking for volunteers to go up and build a camp that they would later be put in. I think that was the first build your camp project. I was assigned to barrack with my cousins. The tar paper barracks were not very effective in keeping the dust out. Dust storms were frequent, Manzanar, dust covered everything. The camp was run by the residents. Those who worked were paid. Doctors were paid $19 a month. Other workers were paid $14. I was a 15-year-old kid on the garbage crew. I was paid $8. We drove around to the mess halls, picked up the full cans. It took us 2 people to load it, pick up a can and load it on a truck. The dump was located outside camp. On the way back, we parked next to the Owens River and fished. I was inexperienced, so I didn't catch anything, but our driver was an experienced fisherman. Some of the carp caught ended up in koi ponds in the camp. The Japanese call koi, carp, koi. The camp life was pretty uneventful, except one day we heard there was a commotion at the front gate. So we went to investigate, and there was a mob in front of the administration building, and armed soldiers were between the building and the mob. We didn't see anybody from the administration addressing the mob. The mob seemed to be angry and irritated. The guards looked like they were stressful. We left. Later learned that somebody was shot. The camp had a newspaper called Manzanar Free Press. We had free press in the concentration camps. The older kids dined in the mess hall with their friends rather than with their families. Among the residents were farmers, and so they started a farm outside the camp. But there was a problem. Rabbits. So we had rabbit roundups. I joined the roundup, and we fanned out in the desert, formed a line, and flushed the rabbits out of their hidings and herded them to a narrow funnel. I was part of the herding, but I was not part of the disposal group. Years later, I used my veterans education benefit to continue my education. While I was in the service, I was able to bring my wife over from Japan, my wife Hiroko. Got my degree, passed the CPA exam, and Manzanar became a distant memory.
Fascinating. Our next speaker is Shiz Nakasone. She was at one of the Poston camps. Remember I had told you Poston was one of the largest with 18,000, but they had 3 camps, Poston 1, 2, and 3, and Shiz was in Poston Camp 3.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shizuko Hirata Nakasone. When the war broke out, we were living in a small town called Thermo in the Coachella Valley. When we were celebrating my sister's birthday, the FBI came to the house to pick up my father. And when they took him away, they told us that we would see him in a couple of days, but we never saw him until after the war was over. And I was at that time 11 years old. My mother was very young. She was only 29, and she had 6 children, ranging from 11 to 3 years old. And about my camp life, I don't recall too much, but I remember one thing, that when we came out of the mess hall, when there would be a big dust storm, and then they had double roofs on the barracks because it would get real hot. So when the storm came, they took the roof and it just threw it right off. So all of us had to run into the girls' latrine and take cover. So that's one of the things that I remember that was really kind of scary for us young people. So. I don't recall too much about going to the mess hall to eat, but we used to have, they would ring the bell like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then we would all line up at the mess hall, and we would have to line up with our plates and have our food plated onto it. So as young people, I guess we had to sit at long tables like this to eat together. And when they served my worst memory is about the food is that when they served sauerkraut and liver, I couldn't stand it. So to this day, I can't eat it. But that's my problem. So, but anyway, I know a lot of people like that stuff, but I can't have it. So, and then if we have people coming in from different blocks, they could not eat in our mess hall. Everybody had to eat in their own mess hall. They would have somebody standing at the door and making sure that we didn't have outsiders coming to eat with us. So, and then my mother worked in the mess hall as a waitress, and my dad wasn't with us because they had taken him, when the FBI came to the house, they took him away, and I think he went to Tule Lake, and then he went to Northwood, New Mexico, and we never saw him until after the war was over. So my mom worked in the mess hall, and then I was younger, so I wasn't dating or anything. And I recall our activities we had was maybe in the rec hall, and they would play all the 1940s music like Frank Sinatra and Glenn Miller. And when I recall going back, I think that's why I learned to dance, and that's why I learned to jitterbug. So that's why I guess I continue dancing, and to this day I love dancing, and that's my exercise. So, yeah, so anyway, during our school days, we went to school, and I took sewing class because we didn't have too much to wear, and I don't recall my mother bringing anything to camp for us to wear, because they always said we could only take what we could carry. So I always wondered, and I never did ask her, but I said, gee, I wonder what she did carry. And so I decided in class I would take sewing, and I made some of my clothes because we couldn't afford to buy anything. And the only thing we bought from Shiz and Roebuck was our shoes and other things, but eventually we had canteens, so I think my mom bought fabrics for me, and then I would sew clothes in class, so I would have something to wear. Yeah, and then, but let's see, I don't know if anything else that I think, but I recall my grandmother was in the camp with us, and we were in the same block, so she would, and going back to becoming a hairdresser, I think she used to braid my hair all the time. So I eventually, I guess, according to the photos I see of myself, I started to style my hair myself as I grew older. And but anyway, so so I see that I did become a hairdresser later on in my life. But when we were told to leave camp, we all bought autograph books, and I have autograph books here and my stuff that I have to show everybody that we all signed in our autograph books and our class albums. So I would like everybody to take a look at all the stuff I have on the table, and if you have any questions, you can ask me. And let's see. And my dad couldn't come back to the coast, so we went to Denver, Colorado. And from there we moved to Boyle Heights, and my dad became a gardener. My mother was cleaning homes. And I graduated from high school in 1948, and I went to beauty college and became a hairdresser. I did hair for over 30 years. And I got married to my husband on September 30th, 1950 at the Union Church in Southeast Town. I have 2 children, Craig and Kathy. And so that's most of my life, I guess. But I ended up in Wintersburg, and I'm very happy here. So I've been blessed with all the friends I have, even here and into my, I got into dancing. I love dancing, so I met a lot of friends there too. So yeah. So anyway, I'm okay, and I'm sad when I talk about this, but I'm sorry. Yeah. So thank you for listening to me.
Hi, my name is Hachimonji, and I want to share with you my experience in the war relocation camp. At the start of the war, the United States government under Franklin Roosevelt rounded up over 120,000 people of Japanese descent, and were all sent to concentration camps, but they called it relocation camps, as some of better. Prior to the war, the Asians were not allowed citizenship, so all these states were not allowed to become naturalized citizens. There were 10 camps that we were scattered along the western states, and we were told to take only what we can carry. And I remember my mother packing a suitcase and lifting it to see if we could carry it. When we were ordered to evacuate, I was 13 years old. I'm a lot older than that now. My father was one of the largest nurseries in Southern California with many branches, but we lost everything. He was taken up by the FBI and sent to a concentration camp, which again is different from where we were sent. We were sent to a War Relocation Authority camp, a different jurisdiction. But the Justice Department freed my father, and he joined us in camp. We were in Poston, Arizona, a camp in the middle of the desert. We're housed in barracks. Each block contained 12 to 14 units with mess hall, male and female toilets and laundry room. And we all went to the mess hall to eat our dinners. We went by clanging bells that told us that dinner was ready. So all 3 meals were placed in the mess halls. It was kind of a fun time for us teenagers, but really a terrible time for us, for our parents who didn't know where we were going or what would happen to us. My father was released from the Justice Department concentration camp and sent to us in Poston. I remember the camps that we had to walk to the center of the block to use all of our facilities. We had to carry our toothbrushes and towels and go take a shower in this bathroom in the center of our block. Initially for our schooling, we had to tramp through the campgrounds to different blocks to get our classes. Later on, the government built really nice classrooms and auditoriums, and so school became, like most schools, we had school dances and assemblies, and I remember going to the PX and getting crepe papers and decorating the mess hall so we could have our dances. The food initially in the camps were terrible because it was cooked by the howlies. They didn't know how to cook Japanese food. So they brought Japanese soup over, and the food became much better. We were there in camp for 3 years. Meantime, my older siblings moved out to East Coast and reassembled. My father opened up another business in LA and a nursery business. So we worked there, and we went on to Compton Junior High School, Compton College, and then I went to UCLA, but I had to work for my room and board going to UCLA because that was the only way that we could afford to go. And then from UCLA, one of my girlfriends convinced me to become a physical therapist, so I went to School of Physical Therapy in LA, and again worked as a domestic in someone's home. But I had a very nice career as a physical therapist. I got married to my husband, Mike, and we have 3 wonderful children, and we feel so blessed that the good Lord has taken care of us all through these years. And I thank you for our presence here at Wintersburg.
Our last speaker is Mike Hachimonji of Grace, and he was from Hard Mountain, Wyoming.
Excuse me. Good morning. I'm Mike Hachimonji, as introduced. Once a friend of mine recollected that we had fun. We were kids, and I was 14 years old. That's the first thing about our internment experience. But before I tell you my experiences during internment, I want to remind you of the hardships and sacrifices and monetary loss that our old Issei and Nisei suffered. They lost respect, they suffered financially. My father was in the seed business, and he had farmer customers in San Fernando Valley, San Diego Valley, and Imperial Valley. And of course, that was all wiped out, and when we were back there. We were a family of 5 living in El Monte. And the night of December the 7th, the FBI knocked on our door and looking for a particular Kibe man. And without a search warrant, they entered our house and went through the house looking for this guy. Obviously, they didn't find him. Now, in May of 1942, we were evacuated first to Pomona Assembly Center, which was built on the parking lot of the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds. The hasty built barracks. The board partition walls, the boards had space between you can see your neighbor. And it was a community of 3,000. We did not live in stables. That's because there was a service road between the stables and the parking lot. They had steel cots and large cotton sacks, which are called ticks. And we had to stuff them with straw. Now, if you had hay fever, I pity for you. And I suffered culture shock. I discovered that there are people there that didn't speak English. Of course, they discovered that here's this little Japanese boy that didn't speak Japanese. I still don't speak Japanese. The authorities hired the locals to prepare the food, and they had no cooking ability. They could care less. And I remember one time we had Van Camp's sardines that come in an old can, and they served us in the can. And of course they soon got experienced evacuee cooks to take over the cooking. I don't know why I remember this, but we had two doctors. One was Dr. Hanaoka and the other was Dr. Sushi. Why I remember, I don't know. Anyway, I got my first glasses in Pomona. They were government issued glasses. They were silver rimmed with a wire thing back here. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. I didn't realize that until then I was nearsighted. In August, we boarded trains for our next destination. One thing I remember was this train had a dining car staffed by black men, and I could feel that they had empathetic towards us because they knew what kind of junk we were going through. And then I remember the meal. We had chicken a la king, otherwise known as chicken fricassee. Some things stick in the mind. The other meals, by the way, that was the only time we had the diner. The other meals were, I don't recall what they were. Excuse me. We arrived at Hart Mountain, Wyoming. We were assigned to a barracks 27-6B, block 27, barracks 6 in apartment B. I call them apartments for lack of a better term. It was a room 20 by 20, had a coal burning stove, and a single light in the ceiling. And there were 5 cots, and with cotton mattresses this time. We didn't have to do straw mattresses. We had in the half block there were 12 barracks, and we shared the shower, toilet, and sanitary facilities, including laundry. Laundry consisting of wash tubs and I feel sorry for my mother now, but she had to hand scrub all her clothes like everyone else. We used to have a washing machine at home. Okay. The consolation, ladies, that there are no partitions separating the toilets or the showers. The administration tried to make things as normal as possible. We had the block manager, city council, had evacuee running barber shop, beauty shop, canteen, radio and shoe repair. We ate ice cream in the middle of the freezing winter. Had sports, and ice skating. In the wintertime, they flooded the football field, and we skated. By the way, we got our stuff from Sears Roebuck, Old Montgomery Ward, by mail order. That was a free online shopping. Our high school was very complete. The first school, the barracks, we had a good high school. Oh God, okay. I played trombone in the school band. I was in the Boy Scouts. I blew a bugle in a drum and bugle corps. A scout drowned in a canal, and my brother was asked to be a pallbearer. Said yes. And he came home and asked Mom, "What's a pallbearer?" He carried a casket. He paled, but he did his job. discovered girls too. Not much steady with me. Too homely. If I were a girl, I wouldn't go with me either. We had three churches, Protestant church, Catholic church, and the Buddhist church. Buddhist funerals were long, and I remember seeing the mortician from Cody sitting in his hearse in a hot summer. And I say, Buddhist services were long. We had bully gangs like the Royal Dukes and the Tiles. One summer I worked as a gopher in a hospital, and I discovered they had diet kitchen, so I'd raid the diet kitchen for extra food. And okay, we at the end of the school year in the third year, I went to Cleveland, Ohio. Uncle Sam gave me $25 in a train ticket. Went there, worked for 3 months, and then joined my family in Glendale, Arizona. By the way, there's that picture. See that picture? That's that iconic Heart Mountain. They picked the right location to build this camp so that we had that there. If you ever get to Cody, Wyoming, near, not 10 miles away, 12 miles away is the Heart Mountain location. There's a beautiful, excellent museum there. If you're going up to Mammoth, up on the highway to Lone Pine, there's Manzanar has an excellent museum there too. And also, the Japanese American National Museum has some stuff on display. Finally, there's a pilgrimage coming up in July, Heart Mountain pilgrimage, where, it's an annual celebration. And there's kid on the barbed wire. Actually, that barbed wire didn't stop us from going out. All right.
I want to remind all of you, we in this audience are the only living generation that has known all 5 generations. So we knew our Jijian and Bajans, the Issei, the sacrifices, the courage that it took to come to a new country. The Isseis, I call them the greatest generation because they are our parents and they bridged the life from Japan and transitioned to an American life. They went through more than anyone. The Sanseis, that is most of us. I call us the overachievers because I think we all felt this obligation that since we knew the Isseis and Nisseis, and we appreciated the sacrifices that they made for us, that we overachieved. We have to be the best students. We have to work the hardest. We have to try whatever we did. You have to be the best. Or try to be the best you could. The Yoseis are our children, and the Goseis are grandchildren. And then, like Harry, he has known his Rokuseis, the 6th generation. It is our responsibility to tell the story. Don't wait until someone asks you. Tell them. When my grandmother was in her late 80s, my aunts and my mom and us, we interviewed them. All after, we interviewed Jisha and Bajang, but especially Bajang. She giggled and she started laughing, and then she cried. And we asked her, Bajang, how come you never told us about your life and all you went through and why you came to America? And her answer was, oh, nobody asked me. So ask. Have your children ask you, and if they don't ask, you ask them. Out of the war came some amazing accomplishments done by the Nisei. Number one was the 100th Infantry Battalion, made up of over 10,000 Hawaiian Japanese, and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, made up of mainland Nisei Japanese Americans, who many of them had families in the internment camps. These two, the infantry and the regiment, suffered the highest casualty rates and became the most decorated units of its size and length of service in United States military history. They received a total of 21 Congressional Medals of Honor, the highest honor the military can give for bravery. Also, the Military Intelligence Service, made up of bilingual Niseis, who broke the Japanese code that shortened the war by 2 years and saved thousands of lives. If any of you in the audience were in the camps yourself, or had families in the camps, will you stand up right now? If you were in the camps, or any of your families were in the camps, will you stand up now? Those of you who were too young or didn't stand because you were in Hawaii or another state, because only the Japanese on the West Coast were put into the camps. If you lived in New York, Chicago, you were not taken into the camps. Ask the people that stood and ask them their stories. Each has a story. All 120,000 people that were in the camps that are left have stories. Please ask. If you won't stop by and see the memorabilia table, you can see some of the treasures that the panel have brought. At this time, and I want to thank you all for coming today. Can I have Dana come up?
Hi, my name is Dana Wakamoto, and let's thank Shar and the panel of Kabo, Tetsu, Joyce, and Jerome, Grace, and Mike. It was a very well prepared presentation, and Shar worked really hard. If I can have our Kiro friends come up, and Kent, they have graciously bought gifts for the panel, and we'll hand those out. We have videoed this presentation and the sharing, but I'm not quite sure how we're going to disperse it yet, so we'll let you know